easiest way to start modifying the suspension of this car is either get springs or dampers or coilovers. Start with those. Add the chassis braces early if you want to. Add it after the spring, then spring, then shock absorbers after that, depending on how aggressively you drive. For someone like Gino and me who are not that aggressive drivers on the street, we'd rather go for a coilover setup or a good shock absorber and a spring combination. Depending on if I want the flexibility of adjusting the height, I'd go for a coilover. If I don't want it, if I know I'm going to drive it on the street and my streets are reasonably decent, I'm not taking it out of town into pothole areas, I'll go for a shock and spring combo, right? The advantages of going for a shock and spring combo is that let me just show you guys. Your ride height is fixed and it's tuned from the company you're buying it from. So they do a lot of R&D on how much ride height difference should be there, what rake is what is the best height, what is the best damping for that particular shock absorber and spring combination. And they give you and when you install it, it's just plug and play. You just install the shock absorber, you do your do your wheel alignment as per the spec, and you're set. The car will behave in a very predictable way. It will not.
It is one more thing what I don't get. I don't know. I might be wrong. I don't know why people choose B12. I mean, B12 or B8 over B14 or B16. Forget about B14. Let's talk about B16 in particular.
Number one, price. The price is much.
20,000 difference, Prithvi.
No, I don't think so. I think
it was the B12 is I think so around 1.2. And the B16 is 1.5.
No, B16 more than B16. It's about 1.8. I think.
1.5, sir. I checked yesterday. This one.
The Built in India website. I'm not very sure about the price on because Gino would also tell you that no, I think the pricing on the website is correct because all the other vendors for Bilstein are 1.8, 1.9 for the B16, 1.5 for the B14.
Nikhil yesterday sent this thing link here. Here it is 1.5. I'll show you here.
Okay, that's very interesting. If that's the case, then it's very good. That's a very, very good option, right? Yeah. See, Raj, the reason people who see coilovers are not very easy to set up. The most of us are setting up the coilovers wrong. We are just adjusting the four suspensions, the front suspension ride height equal, the rear suspension ride height equal, and that's it. We're setting it up. Ideally, that is not how you set up a coilover. The coilover gives you the option not only of raising and lowering your car's ride height, it also gives you the option of tuning the weight balance, the front and rear distribution of the weight balance in your car. And how do you do it? You can't do it without having something called a corner balancing scale. A corner balancing scale is very simple. It's not rocket science. It's just weighing scales under each of the wheels. Right, your front wheel, every wheel has a weighing scale underneath it. You put the car on on all the four weighing scale, and then you measure. Then you read the four weighing scales. Now, and then based on those weighing scale, you can increase or decrease the ride height to add or remove load from that particular wheel. And then you do a cross math. There's a particular math to it, and it's a very simple math. And you get a front rear weight distribution. Now, with the coilover, you can actually change that weight distribution a little bit more than actually quite a bit from the factory spec. So when you put a coilover, ideally we just put the coilover shock absorbers, we do an alignment, ensure the height is level, and that's it. That is not how you install a coilover. After you install the coilover, you put it on the weighing scales, and then you try to increase and decrease the height of in each individual point of the four wheels to get the weight distribution from factory. So before you install the coilover, you measure all the four weight distribution, and after you install the coilover, then you increase and decrease the ride height of each spring to ensure that all the four numbers on the four scales match what the car was with the stock suspension. That is the starting point of setting up a coilover. After that, you then start playing around. Do I want more weight in my front, or do I want more weight in my rear? How much more can I do? So you start increasing the height, which means that the spring is going higher. So the load on that particular wheel goes down. And decreasing the spring height means the load on the spring increases and the weight on that particular wheel increases. So that is how you really use a coilover. Now in India, we don't have the corner balancing machines. I think the only corner balancing machine that's there in India, there are two of them. One is with Racetech in, I think, in the south, and one is with N1 Racing in Bombay. And this is also recent. They didn't have it earlier. And the other one, they're sitting with Volkswagen Motorsport. They do it for their Polo Cup or Vento Cup cars. So until you do that, your coilover setup is not complete. So, and that's a pretty complex process. I mean, you have to every time you have to load the wheel, unload the wheel, increase the ride height, decrease the ride height, and then put the weighing scale underneath the tire and then measure. So in order to avoid all that complication, people prefer the B12 Pro Kit because it is install and forget it. It's already balanced, everything, all the weight adjustments already done from the factory. It's a very, very good solution if you don't want to go onto track and shoot for really aggressive lap times. For your street driving, if you're okay with the height it gives you, perfect, nothing better, go for it. First step, suspension is coilover or spring and shock. Don't do springs only unless, like most of the guys here have thanks to Anirudh, he found the part number for the OEM RS Euro spring. That'll work. That'll work with our shock absorber. That any spring which is lower than that will eventually wear out your shock absorber because your shock absorber is designed to extend to a particular height, and anything more than that weight it has initially, firstly, it will unload the wheel very aggressively. Means that if your shock absorber basically, as the car is pushing down on it, it is pushing back up. So at the factory level, let's say your height is this much. So this is the shock travel that you have. So that is how much the shock can go up and down in the worst case and absorb the bump. When you lower the car using a different spring, the shock kind of goes in. So it's already, or the fluid inside the shock is already compressed. So instead of the shock being fully unloaded, it's already a little bit loaded. So when you hit something, then the shock doesn't come back to this point. It tries to go back with the force to go up all the way. So that extra force is what will unsettle your car if you just do a spring and if you drive hard. Other than that, shock absorbers, the B12 Pro Kit is the safest thing you can go for. If you want lower, you can get the HNR springs. There's a lot of spring options are there. And Bilstein shock absorbers, I think Gino would say also agree that they work with every combination. Yes, put it on all kinds of Lauras, Superb, Sports, everything, right? It works on every kind of spring combination. So there isn't much of a difference. So unless you go really low, the shock absorbers work. And they work much better than the OEM shock absorbers. Raj, we can't hear you. You're muted again.
Laura is the KWs.
Yeah, see, KWs are also fantastic. They are fantastic street suspensions, right? Unless you go for like a V2 or a V3 or that's very fancy track sport, club sport suspension, which is unreasonably expensive, like 6 lakhs for the club sport, if I'm not wrong, KW. And same thing with the Bilstein's club sport, which is track sport. That's also like 5-6 lakhs. So it's unnecessary for a Skoda. Yeah? I mean, if I had a M3 or a M5, I would go for that. Much better. But again, you choose your suspension, coilover system, shock, spring, depending on usability, right?
Yeah, correct. Because see, what is happening is I drive my car on a weekend. Sometimes I don't even drive the car because I have all the other cars to drive. So now, after the suspension, I'll reduce the driving of the car even more because I don't want it to be driven daily or something like that. I want it to be like a more of a project car.
Yeah.
So I'm just heading towards that step by step. And why I chose B16 is also because see, at the lowest, that the first setting that I can put on the B16 is as good as the B12 on its stock setting.
Yeah.
Ride quality, I mean to say. And then whenever, if I don't need it or if I want it a bit hard, then I can just, switch it on.
No, see, the B16 is actually a very good suspension kit to get because it has two options. There are, unknown to most of us, B16 comes in 2 flavors. One is the B16 normal, which is, I think, from 20 to 50 millimeters, 50, which starts from a lower ride height and you can go even lower than that. And there's one version called the B16 Comfort, which is actually 30 millimeters lower than stock. In starting point is 30 millimeters lower than stock. I think the normal B16 is 50 millimeters lower than stock and then more lower, depending on how you want to use it. So you can have both the options with B16. B16 Comfort or B16 Regular. Regular is 50 to 50 millimeters from stock height is the starting point, and it goes below that. The Comfort one is 30 millimeters from stock height, and then it goes below that. So that is a fantastic suspension, provided you're okay with tweaking the things, tweaking the dampers as you want. And no, I have seen KW, I have seen Bilstein. I'm prefer the Bilstein ones if you ask me.
Yeah, everybody's saying that. Nikit also was telling me the same thing. He said any day Bilstein over KWs.
Yeah, see, from a durability point of view, the Bilstein suspension lasts. My B14s, I don't know, I got them when back in 2010. I sold my B14s to a friend of mine in Kerala in 2015, 16, right? And he's running them. I went switched to iBab because I wanted to soften the car a little bit more for daily use, but B14s were really tough. And my B14s are still running. Now, KWs also will run for that extent, but KWs on and off, I've heard, and I've seen this on my friend's Octavia's S4, that the springs become softer, particularly the rear springs, they sag. And because of that, KW gives you all these shims to put on the spring seat or the spring top and spacers to go back to the same ride. I don't think any one of us who has used Bilstein springs, Bilstein coilovers has ever had a spring compress, right? So that's one thing. So, also choosing springs and the coilover system on a car, choose it with an end goal, right? There was a reason why I chose B14s initially rather than the B16. Firstly, I didn't have money back then to put on the LoRa. So I wanted a coilover system which would prevent body roll as much as it can without me having to add sway bars to it. So if you don't want to spend on sway bars, get a stiffer coilover set. It'll counter your need for a sway bar till a long time. Now, if you get a stiffer coilover set, obviously the ride quality will suffer, but if you're driving hard, honestly, it won't matter to you. If you're like me, who's growing old, me, Nikhil, who are a little older than Bharatji. So for us, ride quality matters. So that's why if you can get away with the stiffness of a B14 or a stiffer coilover, go for it. You will not see the need for anti-roll bar immediately. Maybe once you get used to driving the car for 2-3 years very hard, then you'll feel, okay, now I'm getting too much body roll. I need anti-roll bars. And if you are already made up your mind about anti-roll bars, then you go for a softer suspension. Because if you add a hard suspension plus anti-roll bars, your car will become very unpredictable and snappy, right? So the way the suspension modeling or suspension tuning or parts work is that the stiffer the part of the suspension, be it your anti-roll bar, be it your entire setup, the stiffer the entire setup, the more grip you get, obviously, depending on how you set it up. But more or less, you're from your stock level of grip to the end level, to the grip that you're getting from your anti-roll bar and shock and coilover setup will increase. What decreases is how much time and how much warning the car gives you before the car starts sliding. So as you stiffen your chassis, as you add anti-roll bars, as you add coilovers, your overall grip of the car increases significantly. But when the car lets go, means that when the part of a car slides or you have understeer or you have oversteer issue, it will happen immediately. You will have grip and then no grip. With the stock car, you will see the tires squealing, will and then slowly it will let go. As you stiffen up your chassis, as you stiffen up your suspension components, the point at which the car lets go becomes an on-off switch rather than a progressive way. Like, Raj will tell you that he skid his car, right? The car let go slowly. Even at a higher speed, initially you will hear the tires making the sound, and then suddenly your rear will slowly step out of the way, and your steering will become loose. But in a hard strung car, your rear will let go instantly. You will have grip, and then suddenly no grip. That is the downside of having a very stiff setup with coilovers and anti-roll bars. But again, that point at which it will slip is way beyond the point at which your regular suspension will slip. So you're increasing the grip, but you're reducing the safety factor margin that the OEM manufacturers built into their cars, chassis, and suspension, so that people like us, when they do something stupid, we can always recover from it. So you have to be a little bit more on edge when you're driving a high strong suspension, strong anti-roll bar car than you would do the regular car. Nikhil has the rear anti-roll bars on his car. He has seen this behavior himself, that the car lets go unnecessarily very fast. Right, Nikhil?
I think I'll put suspension and take it to the track first, so I know what are the second. I am
See, we all have learned. Nobody here was a suspension expert. I don't think before. I don't think before the Laura that I had, I was the first coilover car on BIC. People used to put coilovers in the south. In the north, it was completely absent. That's because Pete's used to do their lowering and more for stance and looks than for actual handling. Only when we started taking it to the track, we started realizing, okay, we can do this. We can actually change the weight balance. We can change the rake angle. We can change the lower the front, increase the rear. That makes the car behave in a particular way. Whereas if I raise the front and lower the rear, it behaves in a particular way. So all that you learn. The idea is that if you're going for anti-roll bars, I would go for a slightly softer coilover, because your anti-roll bars will take care of the body roll, and your coilover and the softer spring and the damping setting on the coilover will allow you to follow your normal non-track smooth road much better. So either you go for hard coilovers and forget the sway bars till you're have at least 100 laps on BIC or 100 laps on Kari, or you go for a softer coilover and then add anti-roll bars and then change settings depending on what you like.
So one of the things I wanted to maintain with the car was I was very tempted to go for coilovers purely because it will give the car more predictability. Yeah, I do drive a little more than I should at times. Mm-hmm. But the issue I was going to have with the coilover setup with my daily route was ground clearance. And there are specifically 2 speed breakers at my mom's place where even if I put 3 people in the current car, it will scrape. So I knew a coilover is going to scrape my bumper off and whatever off. And I didn't want that. I didn't want that compromise. I wanted a little bit of a drop, so the Euro spring helped. As Prithwi was talking about the shock absorber, I was seeing a lot of vertical movement, so I wanted to reduce that. And I put the teen shocks in. What I found with the anti-roll bar, I changed that quite early, so I can't really recall how it was when it was stock. But even with the anti-roll bar, it gives you a point beyond which it slips suddenly. But it tells you in advance. So I was trying to understand what Prithvi was saying. If the suspension is too stiff, the limit is so high, you get so confident, you'll keep pushing to a limit so far beyond which you can recover from at times. And I don't think on street you need something really stiff. I think you need a compromise. At least this is my opinion. On street, you need a compromise between stiff enough and comfortable enough. Not overly stiff on street. I mean, you're not using the car, I think, on street if you're going to put it too stiff. But you guys are going to track, so it makes sense.
So I have driven a whole bunch of street setups on the 230s, and I think one of the best street setups I found was a combination of either H&R anti-roll bars front and rear and the KW Street Comfort. I think that's the best street suspension for India you can buy. And the Laura, the I-backs were very good, but I remember Arush was not very happy with the feedback he got from the I-backs on the Octavias. I'm not very sure why. Maybe there was some issue with the springs or something or the other. I believe it got sorted later, but I have not driven much on the I-back. On the other hand, I've driven a lot on the KW Street Comfort on the Octavia RS230, and it's very good. It is potentially the best street setup you can have. It's comfortable enough to take your grandmother to the hospital or for an aggressive drive, and it is hard enough for you to do some really stupid shit and get away with it.
There's a lot of talk about the front sway bar. There's a lot of divided opinion about the front sway bar for our cars.
Okay.
So and I don't think everybody's sounding logical on it because they're very strong views on both sides. There's no in between.
So the way to look at the anti-roll bars on a car is that the anti-roll bars on a car are designed to prevent the body from rolling from one. Let's say this is the car, right? They are designed to prevent the body from rolling over on one side or the other, right? Now, when you're preventing a body roll of a car, you're preventing not only the body roll of the rear body roll, you're also preventing the front body roll, right? The reason that the factory gives you front and rear sway bars both is so that, and they are matched to each other, is that the rate at which the rear resists the roll is the same as the rate as which the front resists the roll. Now, imagine a situation where your rear is resisting the roll. Let's look at this way, right? If your rear is resisting the roll a little bit more aggressively than the front, so instead of your car body bending like this, it'll bend like that. It'll become, the rear will go one side, have more body stiffness, and the front will have less body stiffness. As a result, the car becomes unpredictable. So when you change only one sway bar of a car, right, be it any car, you're basically changing the roll, the way the way that particular axle of the car rolls. The remaining axle in the back or the front will roll the same old way. So your car will have two different sets of rotating motions on it. Your front will rotate in a particular different way. I mean, for a front will roll at a particular different load, and the rear will roll at a particular different load. What happens in that case is that your entire suspension, all four wheels become like a spring. So your front wheels will load up because they are softer, because they're the factory sway bar. Your rear wheels will not load up because they're harder, and they're on the what you call the aftermarket sway bar. So your fronts will have a kind of they will store energy, and after a point they will just release the energy. Means that beyond a point, either the front will completely collapse or it will snap back, jump up. So that is the reason why most manufacturers recommend you do it in pairs, so that they match the rates. They match. H&R will give you sway bars which are pairs. IBAC will give you sway bars which are pairs. Obviously, they increase the budget quite a bit, so that's why they sell it individually. For street, doesn't matter much. The rear sway bar is good enough. If you ask me, the rear sway bar good enough. But if you
which is soft, which is hard of what we are getting, how we'll know?
So every sway bar manufacturer gives you a diameter, right? Now the sway bar is nothing but a torsion spring. So it's like you take a straight beam, bend it, and hold it like this, right? So now if you pull the beam down like this, it'll automatically pull this part down. It's like a U-shaped, right? So depending on the manufacturer, every manufacturer gives you a rating on how big the sway bar is and how stiff it is, right? Normally, all manufacturers use the same quality of what you call stainless steel or aluminum tubing for the sway bar, and how fat the sway bar is means that it'll reduce body roll even more. The fatter the sway bar, the lesser the body roll on that particular axle. So if you put a really fat bar on your rear axle, your rear body roll will be almost zero, but your front body roll will still remain what is from factory. So if you want to remove the body roll of all the four parts of your four axles of your car, you change the sway bars in pairs, so that the front sway bar reduces the front body roll, the rear sway bar reduces the rear body roll. As a result, your car's whole body roll reduces. If you do any one end, and depending on how aggressive the sway bar is, being how fat it is and how much it resists the roll, you will find your car becoming reasonably unstable as you go at high speed cornering. And the way the car becomes unstable, the point at which the car becomes unstable if you add only the rear sway bar, is something called lift off oversteer. So what happens is when you're going into a corner, right, you're accelerating in first, you brake hard to get the car to a decent enough speed that you can enter the corner. And when you get in the corner, you slowly press the accelerator and the car is accelerating through the corner. Now, suppose you feel that you have pressed the accelerator too much, or you're entering the corner too fast. What we would do? We would lift off the accelerator and halka sa tap the brake so that the car slows down and you can maintain the line of entry of the car. Now, what happens is when you lift off the accelerator, what you're doing is you're changing the weight balance of a car. So when you're entering a corner, you brake. So the entire weight of the car moves to the front wheels. Then when you lift off the brake, the car, and press the accelerator, then the weight slowly transfers to the rear wheels, while the front wheels are still a little loaded. Okay. Now, as you're accelerating to a corner, you're pressing the accelerator, so the car's nose is lifting up and the weight is transferring to the rear wheels. Now, if suddenly you lift off in the middle, while you're turning in the middle of the curve, you lift off the accelerator. What happens? The weight of the rear wheels, which is being put on the rear wheels because the car is accelerating, all of a sudden is removed. So the rear comes up, and in the corner, when the rear comes up, it becomes light, and the rear slides out of the car. So that is lift off oversteer. That is what happens to us whenever we go hard, and that is what hard into a corner, accelerate, and then suddenly lift off the accelerator and then press the brake, right? So that lift off oversteer is what happens, what your anti-roll bar increases. So if you have a bigger anti-roll bar at the back, the car's tendency to have a lift off oversteer increases significantly. Okay.
So yeah, Prithvi, that's a concern because some of us have the 034 rear sway bar, which is a stiff bugger.
Yeah, it is.
The 034 is a damn good, is a stiff bugger.
Yeah.
And we've kept the front stock. So does it make sense to upgrade that so the ratio is maintained of twist?
Honestly, Nikhil, it depends on your own driving style, right? And what you feel
tracked.
the car is doing. It is completely on your own. If you're okay with how the car is behaving, you keep the rear sway bar only.
Exactly.
If you feel the car is not behaving the way you want it to behave, definitely add the front sway bar. Even 034 Motorsport, they also say that their sway bars are designed to work in pairs. IBAC, HNR. So in terms of aggressiveness, right, the sway bars that are the least aggressive sway bars are the IBAC ones. They will control body roll, but they will reduce your car's tendency to what you call lift or oversteer, or the snap oversteer, or or lose grip very aggressively.
So Prithvi, in our cars, if we put a front, if we do a front sway bar upgrade, what is it we will immediately feel? What are the changes we will need to do as a driver if we do the front sway bar?
See, you have to do the rear and front together.
Yeah,
right?
both.
If you do both, okay, let's start from the first scenario. First scenario is I already have a rear sway bar. I'm adding a front sway bar to it.
Yeah.
And I would prefer that you add the front sway bar from the same company.
Yeah, you've always mentioned that. You've always said that.
Because they're designed to work in pair. So the first thing you'll notice when you add a front sway bar to your already existing rear sway bar setup is that your steering wheel becomes lighter.
Lighter.
Yeah, it becomes lighter. And that is one reason why most front sway bar that companies give you are adjustable. So you can make them softer or harder. And depending on how light the steering wheel becomes, or is it to your liking or not, you can adjust it. So harder setting on a sway bar will make your steering wheel lighter. And you will see that the car enters a corner much sharper. So there is less roll into a corner. So your wheels are kept in, the larger wheel patch is kept in touch with the road. That's the first thing you will notice. Second thing you will notice is that your car's wheel centering, like, when you turn the wheel full and then you press the accelerator, the wheel tends to come back to the center automatically. That centering force will increase. How fast the wheel comes back, it will increase, which is a good thing because that ensures that your car snaps straight after a corner.
So let's say you're taking a U-turn, an aggressive U-turn with the old setup versus the new setup. You should find it easier with a front sway bar.
Definitely easier. Your car will be much flatter. Your front and rear will be in sync. Remember, if you have only the rear sway bar, your rear of the car is resisting the body roll, but your front is not. Front is giving up. So, and if the front gives up too much, then the rear kind of snaps.
Yeah.
So it's like loading a spring until the spring absolutely compresses, and then it suddenly expands, right? Because it can't take any more of the load. So that is essentially what happens when you're in a car with just a rear sway bar.
What are the negatives of a front sway bar?
There is no negative, honestly. There's
nothing difficult. There's nothing difficult you will experience.
See, the only negative of the front sway bar is that you have to install it. That install is not as simple. Gino has seen how complicated it is to lower the subframe, remove everything, and all the bolts in our car. All the suspension bolts are one-time use. All the subframe bolts are one-time use. All the engine mount bolts are one-time use. So you have to replace all those bolts. You have to lower the subframe. Then obviously in these cars, the subframe shifting is a little less, but in the Lauras, subframe is shifted a lot. So to prevent the subframe shifting, you have to put in those alignment bushings. That's what you call the subframe locking collars. Multiple companies make it. So it's a much tedious process. If you go to a garage that has done multiple of them, they'll do it without any problem. But you have to buy new bolts, you have to buy the subframe, the subframe locking collars, and you have to install the sway bar, lower the entire front suspension and low front subframe, and then install it. Installation process is the only difficult part.
With the front sway bar, without a front sway bar, assuming you can take a corner not more than 150 without losing confidence.
Yeah.
Are you saying you can do that corner faster with a front sway bar?
Yes, any day. See, look at it this way, right? So when you're accelerating into a corner, the rear sway bar helps you enter the corner faster.
Yeah.
It helps you enter the corner faster. But middle of the corner is where the car becomes unstable. So your corner exit speed will remain the same. Your corner entry speed will increase, and whatever extra speed you carry into the corner with the rear sway bar will help you exit faster. A front sway bar will reduce the uncertainty at the corner exit. So your corner entry speed will be increased, as well as the corner exit speed also will be increased.
So many say on our car the understeer is increased. Is there real logic behind that?
No, there's no logic. There's no logic. Because you have the rear sway bar also, right? If they're designed to work in pairs, they're designed to increase the oversteer of the car and reduce the understeer of the car.
My previous Octavia had this ST suspension, not KW Street Comfort, and ST rear and front anti-sway bars.
Yeah.
Excellent dynamics it has. And I bought it from Racetrack only, as I was the sub-dealer. So I took the car to Racetrack to check whether all the settings were correct. And then double checked it and confirmed. So it was beautiful to drive. The sway bars, the handling, the sharp cornering, everything was very good.
Yeah.
So, Prithwi, with the front sway bar, will your steering inputs distinctly change in the corner?
Significantly.
It had multiple notches also. So you can select.
Yeah.
Understeer or steer.
Oh.
Yeah. So the most sway bar companies for the Octavia platform, the adjustable rear sway bars, very few companies make, but all companies give the adjustable front sway bar. The reason they give you the adjustable front sway bar is that depending on the kind of road you're driving in, it allows you to increase the body roll just a little bit in the front, so you're following the road evenly. If you don't have any body roll in the front, then your car is just bouncing off the bumps rather than following the road. Right, that your shock absorbers take care of, your springs take care of, but your anti-roll bar also take care of. Right. The reason anti-roll bars are the only area where the anti-roll bars you can say hurt the car is that your car essentially has 4 independent suspensions, right? With the factory anti-roll bars, those suspensions are reasonably able to move. All the 4 wheels are reasonably able to move without interfering with each other's movements. So you're able to go over a bad bumpy road much easily because your individual wheels are moving and not one wheel is letting the other wheel move or one wheel is removing the other wheel move. The moment you add an anti-roll bar to the entire system, the independence of movement of your 4 suspension points reduces. So anti-roll bar is linking the left side of the suspension to the right side of the suspension. So if the left side wants to compress, if you have a really hard anti-roll bar, the right side will not allow it to compress because the anti-roll bar is resisting that compression. Same thing goes for the rear. If the rear is trying to compress and you have a really hard anti-roll bar, it will not able to compress fully. So your car will bump. It'll jump over the bad roads. Whereas if the factory roll bars allow it to compress only up to a point. So that is the beauty of suspension tuning that the factory guys do. They spend a lot of money to give us this car in a particular shape. Is that the car will be able to is designed to follow the road as best as possible without throwing the driver off guard or without the car behaving in any kind of unexpected manner. As you're adding anti-roll bars, your car's independent suspensions will become dependent suspension. It's like becoming a solid rear axle slowly.
Yeah, that's correct.
So that way it will help, right? Like I said, first, if you have a rear anti-roll bar, good enough. If you want to balance the car even more, get a front anti-roll bar. Because I have heard people people go from one anti-roll bar to both anti-roll bars and be very happy. Nobody I've heard who removed the front anti-roll bar after installing it because it makes the car so much better and predictable.
So, Gino, you have springs on yours with stock shocks, right?
Yeah, correct. Yes.
You happy?
Earlier it was Cobra. I was not at all happy. So I threw it away and put IBAC now. Now it's okay, but I am not getting that street comfort level comfort now.
Yeah.
So not that much happy.
So, Prithwi, Gino's got IBAC lowering springs with stock shocks, as far as I understand.
Yes.
Yeah. So, the lowering springs are designed to work with the stock shocks to a point. Remember, the lowering springs are designed to work with the stock shock absorbers. The stock shock absorbers are not designed to work with the lowering springs. That's the difference.
Yeah,
so eventually one will give out. The shock absorber will give out because you're compressing it beyond more than what is needed.
So is your ride hard, Gino? Is it bumpy or crashy or hard?
It's a bit bumpy at sometimes. But with Cobra, it was solid. It's totally unpredictable. For softer roads, for small patches of roads and all, it's very comfort. But you drive hard. I stopped riding my car for a long time because I didn't know this was the case.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so that takes care of the anti-roll bars. Any other questions on anti-roll bars?
But this beat,
I have H&R in stock. Maybe I'll try that.
Yes, please. H&R, the pair works very well. IBAC, the pair works very well. The 034, the pair works very well, but it's again on the aggressive side. So
I had one issue before with my Octavia. The rear links used to snap every time I drive hard.
Yeah. So that is another thing. So when you're doing the anti-roll bars, let me just see if I can get to the front anti-roll bars. Hang on, this thing has rebooted itself. So yeah. Oh, it's asking me to donate. Okay, sorry.
Bharatji, you're there?
Bharat sir said in chat that front anti-roll bars will increase understeer.
Yeah, no, saw that. Bharat is around?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Yes. So, okay. So the end links, right? The end links is something that is made of plastic on our cars, not the most ideal thing. Your end links will start giving out if you drive aggressively on aggressive sway bar. So something like 034 or H&R, I would definitely recommend getting aftermarket end links because they are stronger. Plastic can only take so much load, plus you got exhaust in the back and all the heat going out of the back. So they will melt and they'll break. That, is a prime example. I've also broken my end links once. I'm on my second set of end links right now. I haven't told you guys this ever, but I've broken my end links on track with the stock anti-roll bar. So I would get a metal end link. I think there are a whole bunch of end links available depending on what your remaining suspension setup is. If you're going to keep the stock or stockish ride height, I think the Moog end links are the best because they're essentially a metal version of the stock end link. But if you're lowering your car and you want to load or unload, preload or unload your rear anti-roll bar, then you have to get adjustable ones. Adjustable ones are noisy. They will be noisy. There is no way you can have it not noisy. But then it means that you have to get it to make less noise. You have to put more grease, maintain them a little bit more. So
I had that also from ECS tuning, and every time, it comes out.
Yeah, it'll come out. So there are different ones.
Everything. It doesn't work.
Yeah. So you need to have that. I think that the best end links for our cars that I've seen is the Super Pro ones. They make the best adjustable end links from what I've seen. The rear end links, the front end links, all companies are same. I think the Racing Line one is fixed adjustment, whereas all fixed adjustment points, whereas the APR and all the other ones are all variable adjustment points. So I would not upgrade your front end links anytime soon. The rear end links I will upgrade if I'm going really hard on the car with a fat rear sway bar. The front end links I'll upgrade when I get a coilover or a lowering spring, because that will unload your front bar. Remember, the front roll anti-roll bar. Let me just see if I can get this right. So track anti-roll bar, right? So this is your anti-roll bar, if you can see in the screen, right? So this line, it is coming and is bending, right? This should be parallel to the ground, right? It should be this angle should be parallel to the ground. When you lower the car, this angle becomes lower. It becomes that it should be like this. The end of the anti-roll bar should be like this. It becomes like this. So you need to adjust the end link to kind of bring it up like that. That is the adjustable end link you need for the front. Same goes for the rear. If I let's say if I can go back to this, 1 second. If I can go back to rear suspension.
So what you're saying, Prithvi, if I put a 034 front sway bar, I can use the stock end links.
Yes. No. See your end link, right? So if this bent part of the car, this should be parallel to the ground.
Got it.
So as you lower the car, the suspension also lowers. This goes up or goes down. It's not parallel to the ground. When you get an adjustable end link, it is to help you to adjust the distance between the end link and the sway bar, so it kind of comes back onto the ground.
If you are changing the heights, if you are changing the heights.
If you're changing the heights, you have to get a front end link adjustable. If you're not changing the height, the stock end link works. Because even though the stock end link is plastic, the end parts of the links are plastic, is pretty decent plastic. It'll eventually go because the brakes are right there and it's getting a lot of heat, and plastic doesn't like heat. But it'll take a long time to go. It's very good quality plastic.
But the rear ones will give up faster than the front.
Yes, the rear one will give up much faster than the front. So
because there's more load there.
Yeah. It'll definitely give up much faster. So this is the rear end link. This entire body is plastic, so it can only take so much and it'll break.
Bharatji.
Yes.
Bharat?
Yes, sir.
So when you loaded your car with mangoes, no, the other time.
Yes.
I think your car must have got so stiff you could take corners at 200, man.
The rear to some extent, the front load does not really change much on our cars, right? We tried to fully load a car, unload a car in steady state. And we found that the front barely gained 100 kilos, even with maybe 600 kilos of load.
So Prithvi, Bharatji's car at the rear had all these cartons of mangoes. Prithvi, you're on mute.
So yeah, that's when you add weight to the car, your springs compress, and there's no more scope for the spring to compress. So it acts like anti-roll bar, unless the thing moves around. Then you have a swinging mango roll bar.
You need to send us some mangoes now.
See, the stiffness of the car is also a function of its own weight also. So you've added, more mass. So the stiffness is outcompensated. It actually becomes worse in terms of dynamics. The ideal car would have the stiffest chassis, the lightest weight, the softest possible dampers, and medium springs that stay in their center, and they get harder logarithmically as they compress or decompress.
Do you know, with your springs, has your ground clearance been affected?
Yes, it is. Around
It is,
20 mm, 30 mm, I think.
So, but that's as good as a coilover, right?
35 mm. 35 mm is mostly the springs.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's fire and forget, right? You don't have to play with the adjustment. You don't have to play with the damping settings.
Exactly.
If you are not very pro tweaking your car around every day, then spring and shock absorber is good enough for your suspension. If you want the height adjustability and you want to play around with the damping settings, damping adjustable suspensions are there. If you want just the height adjustability, there are height adjustable suspensions without the damping. That's there. So every kind of use case has a solution for it.
Depends on your need and what you can live with.
What you can live with and what you want to do with the car.
If you're not,
if
you don't want to go and adjust the damping, the valving, the heights every other day, then you just fit a set and forget it. Prithvi, this B12 Pro kit, no, Bilstein B12.
Yes.
That's a fixed setup, right?
Yeah, fixed setup.
So most, they will find a big difference from stock suspension.
Oh, huge difference. The comfort goes up, right? Because the way the built-in suspension works, the built-in coil shock absorbers are basically inverted strut. So the entire suspension is much stronger. It is much more finely damped. So the the way that it absorbs the bump is significantly better than the way it absorbs the bump on a stock suspension.
I think for the 245 stock setup, if somebody spends about a lakh and 5,000, I think is what the price is on the Bilstein website for the B12 kit. I think that's all you need probably.
Yeah, absolutely. That's more for most of us. That's all you need on the road. I would add the rear cross brace. I highly recommend it. Not the racing line one, that is too expensive because it's carbon fiber, because there are all these removable parts and all. There are cheaper ones available, but they require you to drill a hole into your body. That if you're okay with that, buy that. That is the first chassis mod you should do. That again, what each of the rear chassis mods I'm doing is ensuring that the body compresses or decompresses or loads up or unloads up at a linear rate rather than becoming a spring. That's what I'm doing. The biggest part of your body which flexes is the hole in the rear, hole behind the rear seat. It's a hatchback. Our cars are a hatchback to be made to look like a sedan. They're not a sedan. They don't have a member connecting the top of the rear strut and the rear left and rear right strut. So all of that flex, if you can eliminate, that's the first thing you eliminate. Then you, depending if you want the same ride height but a better ride quality, you keep the stock springs, go for a Bilstein shock absorber, or even Koni. Koni has the new shock absorbers, which I think some of them are also damping adjustable ones. They have a damping adjustable option also. So change the shock absorber first. But then remember, if you change the shock absorbers, Bilstein has a shock absorber for the stock spring and a shock absorber for the lower spring. So tomorrow, if you want to add a lowering spring, then your Bilstein shock absorber will need to be changed. The one you have for the stock spring will work, but it will not give you the same level of comfort as a B6 is the lowered one. B6 is the regular shock absorber for the stock spring height, and B8 is the one for the lower spring height. So get an end goal in mind before you start buying suspension parts, because suspension parts may or may not be compatible with each other.
So that B12 Pro
my service manager, Matthew, hope you know Matthew, Prithwi.
Yeah, of course.
He's hellbent on B8 plus HR springs for my car.
Yeah, you are right. B8 is for lowering springs. You are right.
Yeah.
B8 is for lowering springs.
See, with HNR springs, I have seen they make the car really hard. They are as bad. They're slightly better than the racing line spring Bharatji had on his car. He had the racing line damper and the spring setup. Oh my God, that car was like, it wouldn't move. There was no suspension in the car. HNR springs are slightly less than that, but they're not that great. They'll be very stiff. They're very low. And the lower the spring makes your car sit, the stiffer it will have to be to prevent your car from bottoming out. So that's the rule. So if you get lowering springs which are very low, the car will become very stiff. If you get a lowering spring that is medium height, the car will become medium stiff.
Gino, I think B12 Pro kit will suit you.
See, Matthew has good experience with Bilstein from Pete's. So whatever suspension he says, he go for Bilstein only in that.
You can't go wrong with Bilstein. They have been in the suspension game for the longest, and they are truly the best in the world. So
check for Bilstein 12 Pro.
Yeah. So, before I went Olin's, I was actually looking to try to see if I can get the B80, B16 DDC or the B16 regular one ride control. But there was so much lead time in the B16s that I was like, fine, fuck it. Olin's are something I really wanted to try out. So I got my Olin's finally. They should be here tomorrow or day after. Finally,
Nice.
It's been shipped. Yes.
Prithvi,
So-
can you click that link which is in the chat box?
Chat box. Okay, let's see chat. Okay, Bilstein India. Yeah. So I have never ordered from this site. This site is quoting lower prices than anybody in the planet. So I'm not very sure is this a legitimate site or is it, because I remember there was you guys can try ordering from them. You can always
No, but
find out who.
Is the kit right? Is this okay? Maybe we can decide where to
Yeah,
get it.
so it depends. Right? We are as MQB Octavia. So see, Bilstein, there's a better one, right? Bilstein. 1 second. 15. Product finder, yeah. Product finder. So you go to this site. This is official Bilstein's site, right? So here you can drive your car. What is it? Okay, allow all. Okay, so I drive a 2019 Skoda. 2019. Yes. Okay. Skoda Octavia. Hang on 1 second. So, wait. Oh wait, Bilstein. There's a configurator. Okay, sorry, it's Bilstein configurator. Bilstein configurator. Yeah. So, online catalog. This should be it. Yeah. So 2019. This is the Volkswagen. Look, I'll do the Volkswagen only, right? We are the. No, this is the US one. So let's try to find out. Bilstein shop. Hang on, let's go to the Bilstein website only. They'll have that one.
Yeah, this is not very friendly.
Yeah. No, they have a very nice product catalog. International. Okay, yeah. See, this browse online catalog. This should give you the thing. This is the link for it. So this is the main Bilstein product catalog. So so now you go down to Skoda over here, and you go down to, where is it? Wait, 2019 over here, and you go down to Octavia 3, and you go down to 219 TSI 217. Yeah, this is the one. 140 DKZA. Yeah. The suspension, and then you go to coil suspension kit complete, coil spring suspension. This is the one which will tell you all the coilover options. So you have the B14, which is 30 to 50 millimeter PSS. You have the B40. These are different strut widths. And if I go to the B16 PSS 30 to 50, there is a comfort one. If you can B16 ride control PSS 10. There should be a comfort one. I think they've removed the comfort one from their thing. They've removed the comfort one. So it used to be 20 to 30 millimeter for this thing. Let me just see. Damptronic. Okay, so we have the Evo S also for our cars now. This is the latest Bilstein suspension kits.
Front lower 10 to 30.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the club sport. Club sport you don't want. Club sport is proper track suspension. The Evo S 20 to 35 millimeters. This is essentially what the B14 comfort was. B16 comfort was. So you have the Bilstein Evo S, which is the old B14 comfort, right? Which is this one. We have the 55 millimeter outside diameter strut. So 20 to 35 millimeter lowering for the Bilstein Evo S versus your 30 to 50 millimeter lowering for the B16, any B16. So if you want a slightly higher suspension, the Evo S is there. And the part number is sitting over here. You click on this part number, it will tell you all. So this is the part number for the Bilstein Evo S that you're looking at. Okay. 1 second. So similarly, you can go to the B16. Remember, you have to look at this 55 millimeter. There's two 50 millimeter, 15 millimeter. So B16 10 50 millimeter, B16 PSS 10 55 millimeter. This is the one you want to look at.
We are GTI S or SE or Autobahn Rabbit.
No, we are not that. We are Skoda. I'm looking at the Skoda parts. These are parts for the Skoda. So the part number is this. You can just take this part number, copy, put it in Google, and you will get the right suspension. So yeah, so this is the kit. This is the B16 kit, 15 to $1507. Yeah, I don't know how they're giving it for so cheap, but this is the price US. I mean, you can make it $1,300 for each is slightly expensive side. $1,300, $1,400 is the right price for this. So let's say this is the Bilstein. We have the part number, right? So Bilstein shop is another Bilstein shop.
What is the URL of the earlier site?
It was I'll share the URL for that parts catalog button right now. 1 second. The parts catalog site is this. So I'll just share that. So this is the official Bilstein parts catalog website link.
Web1 car parts. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just go back to this. So this is the Bilstein shop. So I've copied the part. No, hang on, I have to copy the part number for the. This is the part number for your B16, and why is it not copying this? Not copying the right part. Yeah. So, wait. This has been 481.
Maybe they've upgraded some.
Yeah, maybe they changed the part numbers, right? Coilover BC. You can actually then select it from here also. So Bilstein shop is one of the largest Bilstein distributors around. So we are Skoda Octavia 2.0 TSI. B14 is 1100 euro.
So Prithwi, when it says here ride height drop from 30 to 50 mm.
Yeah.
This is on the international spec, right?
International from the Euro Spring.
So for us, 30 actually means 45.
Yes, 45. And 50 means what do you call 30 to 50? 30 means 45. And this one, the Evo S is 20 to 35 mm.
So 30 mm drop, 50 for 45, livable.
Much livable, much more livable than you would have. But see, again, it depends on everybody's preference. What your roads are, how comfortable you are driving on lowered car.
You can manage it. You don't have ramp issues.
It is less to do with what I prefer. Is more to do with what everybody's individual preferences. So that takes care of the suspension, the shock absorbers, anti-roll bars. Next part of the suspension that we generally address is the bushings. Now, each bushing in our car is designed to give comfort over handling.
Do we want to do that this session or the next one?
I think we can quickly do the front bit, right? Because in our cars, the rear bushings we generally don't touch unless we absolutely want to fine tune the ride to a rock hard race car. So
front, you don't need to touch the back.
You don't generally avoid it. It's not necessary because after you add the braces, after you add the anti-roll bar, after you add the shock rear coilovers, the bushing the last thing you want to do. And your OEM bushings are good enough, they will last you for the lifetime of your car. Once they wear out, then you upgrade. The bushing, the two bushings that you should upgrade in our cars is the control arm bushing. So this is what sits under your front suspension. This is the front control arm. This is your subframe over here. This bush and this bush are the bushes you need to change. You should try target changing. The stiffer these two bushes are, the lesser wheel hop you will have, and the better your cars will respond in a corner. The softer these bushes are, the more wheel hop you will have, and the worse your car will behave in a corner. More unpredictable it will behave.
So I think three of us have the Club Sport, you, me, and Anirudh.
Yes, I have not installed my. So what you, me, and Anirudh have is the rear bush from this.
Yeah.
This rear bush, instead of the Skoda one, we have switched over to the Golf Club Sport S bush.
Number 2, right?
Yeah, number 2, which is a slightly stiffer bush, which allows for some movement, but not as much as the stock bush. So this bush is what controls your caster, right? The caster determines how fast or how slowly your wheel comes back to center after you turn it. The stronger the caster angle you have, the more your car will snap straight and the less wheel hop you will have. So most of the one way to reduce wheel hop, but it also adds NVH, is a caster offset bush, which basically changes the point of this from being the center that towards one side. That increases the caster and reduces your wheel hop. But that will add a bit of NVH into your car. This front bush,
Super Pro has.
yeah, Super Pro has these bushes. The front bush is just to complement the rear bush. Like if you change the rear bush to a poly bush and the front remains rubber, then the front flexes a lot more and the rear does not. So the front wears out faster. So if you're doing the bush, might as well do both the bushes. Now these bushes will add some noise to your car because the car will not have as much flex in the suspension, these two joints, and it'll transfer to your cabin. It's not unlivable. It's very, very nice. I prefer it actually than the stock suspension setup. So that's it for the front suspension. There's the strut bar you can add. It helps after you added the anti-roll bar. Without the anti-roll bar, the front strut bar helps because it keeps the top part of your chest of your struts from flexing, but the rear is still flexing. So yes, like Nikhil has already put his front strut bar on. Yes, you will feel a difference, but that difference you will really feel when you add a front sway bar. That because that connects, that completes the 4 points. Right now you have just 2 points connected and 2 points are the stock level of flex.
No, that front sway bar is so tempting, but as you said, the install of that with the subframe, no, it's a nightmare.
So Nikhil, honestly, Gino will be able to tell us even more that this is not that much of a big deal if you know what you're doing.
Yeah,
Shops
exactly.
like Gino, Arush, then what's his name, Rahul. All these guys have done multiple of them.
Yeah.
If GT tuners, they've done multiple of them, and for them is second nature. Just ensure you get new bolts, and if you want, add the subframe locking kits. That's it. That's all you need.
Bolts are one time. That is
one time use. You can reuse them. I wouldn't recommend it.
Oh,
because then you can't torque them because they might break.
Shit.
So these bolts, they stretch as you torque them to lock the thread in place. Now, once they stretch and you remove them, that stretched bolt is the one which is going in. And when you're torquing it more, they will stretch only up to a point before they break. So you can reuse them once. I've reused them once. I'm cheap a little. So I think even Gino, everybody who's done the subframe has reused the bolts once, but
it's not something you can keep removing and putting back, putting back.
No. If you're constantly removing and putting back, get new bolts. They're cheap. They're not much. 150 rupees.
Yeah, very cheap.
Yeah, so just get them from Skoda and replace them for the sake of it. So every bolt that goes into this thing, this front sway bar bolts, then this bolt, then this bolt, then all the bolts over here, everything is one-time use. So you should not, ideally you can use it one more time, but Volkswagen states it's one-time use, so one-time use. Because they might break. And I've had a situation. I did like a cheapskate once in a while. I do it. I reuse my transmission mount bolts twice. And on the way to the track, my transmission mount bolt stripped my transmission mount.
Really?
So my car's engine slapped like this.
Oh shit, man.
Yeah, it's not a nice feeling because then that hanging gearbox hits your lower floor pan. It bends your front axle. It can do a lot of damage. So don't be cheap on the bolts.
So the bolt just bust, is it?
Yeah, it's stripped. Because see, every time I'm tightening it and torquing it down, it's stretching the bolt. After a point, the bolt reaches the tensile limit of stretching, and then any jerk from the drivetrain, it'll break. Or something might happen, the bolt will break within the hole. So you'll have half the bolt stuck in the hole, half the bolt outside the hole.
So Gino, these bolts are easy to get, Gino?
Very easy.
Yeah, I got it from Easiest Tuning as a kit.
I'm assuming those bolts are also one time only.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bolt is one time, wherever you get it from. Okay.
Yeah. Almost all your bolts are one time use. Also, your wheel bolts that go into your wheels are also I think they have a life cycle of 10 or 15 times you can remove them and put them back in. After that, you're technically supposed to throw them out. And I have had that also happen to me, that my wheel bolt also stripped out on track and my wheel came off.
Came off?
Yeah, it came off. Fortunately, the car was low enough that it sat on it. It sat on the wheel instead of the car bottoming out. So it damaged everything. But yeah, it was on 3 wheels, the car.
Oops.
So
So
just
Prithvi, you
remember
said
that.
from bushing point of view, the front, only those two is required, nothing
Yeah.
else.
Lower control arm bushing, the rear, this is called the rear bush, this is called the front bush. Just these two, go poly or go a harder rubber and you'll be happy. There's no need to change anything else. Unless you're going for like crazy, that half a second extra on track, no need to change any other bushing.
Bharat is going for that.
I'm sure. See, after a while, the more power you add, the more wheel hop you get. And these things, first thing they'll help you is reduce wheel hop without having to change the dog bone bush, which adds a lot of noise. That's a different story. We'll do that in a separate session.
Bharatji, where are you, sir?
I'm here, sir.
So guys, now completely Q&A. Ask away. Bharatji, me,
Yeah, I've
Dino.
already posted a question because this is one thing I've never actually been able to clear up for myself.
Okay.
Are adjustable end links good? Yes or no, in a way? You know, it's never clear to me.
Yes, they are good. They allow you to reload your front sway bar if you're lowering the car. If you're lowering the car, you have to get adjustable end links.
So should they be adjustable or should they be matched to that suspension setup? Now I can understand the weight of the car can also change. But somehow the braking of the adjustable end links was always a question mark.
Yeah, so there are different kinds of adjustable end links from different manufacturers. Who adjust the height of the end link differently. Now the ones like 034, the way they screw up and screw down, they will break. There are slightly different ones from Racing Line which are much more sturdier, which have much more thread inside the hollow chamber. They won't break. The ones from Super Pro again are very good, very, very well adjustable. Super Pro as a suspension component company is one of the best in the world. I have never had any problem with their products. You've been using the Super Pro product from 2003 when I had the Evo.
Damn good, I believe.
Never had any issues with them. Super Pro, their end links are phenomenal. So if you're lowering the car, you're basically also unloading your front and rear sway bar. So your body roll increases. So if you want to reduce the body, bring the body roll back to the stock point, or at least the point you had previously before lowering the car, you will have to do end links, adjustable end links. And the reason why manufacturers don't sell fixed sized end links and only sell adjustable ones, because every suspension combination, spring, shock, coilover changes the height. So there you can't have one fixed height on these new end links.
Right.
So I guess like hubs and
smarter, and it's not a smart idea, for example, if one were to drive at BIC, to simply, slightly preload the front left and keep the front right loose. You wouldn't want to do that.
You wouldn't want, it won't help. It won't help.
Okay.
I mean, it'll help a little bit, but again, it's an insignificant amount of load it'll do. Right.
Okay.
And I'll tell you the difference, right? For the longest time on the Laura, after driving it on the B14 coilovers, I did not have adjustable end links. And when I put the adjustable end links on, because that time they were too expensive, like $500 a set.
Oh.
And it was $500 for adjustable end links, or $500 for an intercooler. So yeah, you get the point. But when I did put the adjustable end links towards the end of the car, the difference was night and day. It was such a noticeable difference, because your sway bars are actually loaded before you're rolling, versus you're rolling, then the loading up, and then it starts doing the anti-roll properties. The difference you'll immediately feel if you're having a lowered car without the adjustable end links.
Got it. Another question, like Raj sir was saying earlier that he would probably go for B16. So my question is, why not Club Sport then?
So it's too stiff. Club Sport, the starting point is very stiff and it gets stiffer.
But since both are adjustable, the rebound is also adjustable. So you could maybe just set a stiff rebound and soften the bump.
You can't do it that much. You can't. The starting point of the rebound is at the end of the starting point of the B16.
Okay.
The B16 at the hardest setting is the Club Sport at the medium setting.
Okay.
So I guess it just gets more extreme.
It gets more extreme. Yeah.
Right.
And it also lowers the car a bit more.
So Club Club Sport on street doesn't make sense at all. No, Prithvi.
There are people who are driving it. I know my friend Veda, who has a BMW M2 or M3 on Club Sport, who is driving it. So let's see.
For those cars, yeah.
Okay, so let me just see. Ride control, PSS10. Is there a Club Sport? Where is the Club? Okay, so lowerings 10 to 30 millimeter lowering. So this is actually
the Club Sport is 10 to 30.
Yeah, 10 to 30. Actually lowers it less. But it will become more stiffer.
But given that it has more travel, why is it necessary that it would be stiffer? That's the part I can't understand.
Because the Club Sport is designed for track, means that the surface is uniform.
Yeah.
So it is trying to push the wheel down to the ground as hard as it can, because it's expecting the surface to be flat. Now, when your Club Sport hits the uneven terrain, it'll send the judder down the entire thing.
Yeah.
So that's the
even if the adjustments, even though there are individual adjustment possibilities, it still won't help.
No, it won't help. So Club Sport, if you look at this picture, if you guys can see it, the Club Sport comes with adjustable camber plates on top and rear adjustable camber plates over here.
I like that.
Yeah. So it allows you to adjust all of that. It has a lot more adjustment. But remember, as you're adding metal parts and replacing them with replacing rubber parts with solid metal parts, the road noise, the road bump all gets transferred to the chassis and to the cabin. So the NVH also goes up.
Right.
So so you can look at this. It's all metal. This is a metal plate mounting onto a metal bearing over here. Metal plate and a bearing over here. So you have two settings. You have both the damping and the compression, rebound compression, which is not there in the other ones.
Prithvi, so if we go with B8, it is enough. I have already put on Euro springs.
Yeah, good enough. It's good enough. B8 is fantastic. Fantastic. It is one of the most comfortable shock absorbers I ever used. It is really amazing. It changes it rides better than the stock.
It will further go down or already it's down?
If your stock, see the shock absorber is matched to your spring height. Okay. If your spring is okay, changing the shock absorber will not compress your spring more unless you got a shorter shock absorber. So B6 plus the Euro spring is the right combination. B8 is for lowering springs.
Exactly. B8 is for lowering.
Achha. So I have to go with B6, eh?
Yes, unless you plan to lower the car in the future on IBACs.
No. I want the daily drivability.
Daily drivability, absolutely. Yeah. Go for B6 springs, and then if you want, add the anti-roll bars. That's good enough.
Okay.
That will make the car handle like it's nothing else.
Which anti-roll bar I have to consider?
See, the soft. If you're going to use the car only on the street, go with IBACs. They're the softest ones. Street.
Okay.
So the way
put the link, na, just so that
so the Gino and all the vendors on the group, they know there are all the part numbers they have. So IBAC is the softest and the most street friendly, but the least adjustable, because they are not adjustable. You cannot change how stiff the rear front is. Yeah. HNR has both street and slightly track friendly. They're two different kind of sets. Both are, one is adjustable, one is not adjustable.
Okay.
Then you have people like 034, APR and all these guys. They also have stronger anti-roll bars, not very well matched to the car suspension, because at the end of the day, a suspension company, I would go with a suspension company for a suspension component and an exhaust and a remap company for a remap component.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's like going to Maruti and asking them to give you a Rolls Royce. Yes, they'll make one. Will it look like a Rolls Royce? Maybe. Will it act like a Rolls Royce? No. It's like going to HNR asking them, I want exhaust. Give me a downpipe. They will make one for you, but will it be as good as a Miltech or all the other brands, Akrapovic or something? No.
Okay.
Stick with the specialists.
Nice.
Gino ordering, Gino?
You might go for the B8. Let me see.
Okay.
It depends on how the budget is. Customs duty and how the share market goes up.
And the budget depends on how the market is.
Correct.
The market has been tanking for the past week.
Fuck, man. Bad shape.
Yeah, really bad. And it'll come back up. It'll come back up. People are nervous right now. Plus, people are booking quarter. Anyway, that's a different story altogether.
Bharatji, you were supposed to do some timing. Bharatji, what happened?
Sorry, I'm sorry. What was I supposed to do?
You said you were going to do a timing.
Oh, I've not done that yet. I am quarantined. My whole family has COVID, so I may have it also. I tested
Sorry,
negative.
I missed that. I didn't realize
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So I don't want to step out and risk anybody.
You guys, Prithvi, you studied that frame stage 2 numbers?
No, I haven't actually. I haven't been little tied up. So I'll study that and let you guys know what I think about. I mean, he made 341 horsepower, right?
350.
350.
Yeah.
So that's 317 is what I made on 99 on APR 98 map. So 317 is not. It's pretty decent bump.
Yeah, big
Yeah,
bump.
but see, if you compare cars that have been run on the GTT dyno and the Harmonix dyno, the Harmonix dyno always gives you a higher number than the GTT dyno.
Okay. So yeah, so we'll have to look for a stage 2. So maybe we'll
So-
make Rishi our guinea pig and make him a stage 2.
So he's doing stage 1 for sure.
So we'll make him do stage 2. Don't worry. We'll just cut out the cat while he's not looking.
Rishi is the
No, so APR guys can't do that. See, the problem is you have to find somebody going other than APR. Both these guys are going APR. Dr. Kashish Sharma is also going APR, and Rishi sir is also going APR, and he's going IS-38.
We'll do a GPF delete from racing line and a cat delete from racing line. He won't even know.
Yeah,
He won't
exactly.
even know. We will have fun with him. So we can get we'll put it back. We'll give him a stage 2 eventually, but we'll put a racing line map, stage 2 map on him and see how it works. Or maybe Gino can send his slave tool and we can put a code 6 stage 2 map on it and see how it works. Absolutely fine.
Right.
R&D.
Gino, one question I had from you. No, when you guys removed the GPF right from your car, did you remove that controller also, which has all those tubes in it?
No, control is kept as it is,
Okay.
but cancelled out the small pipings,
Okay, all right. So it's plugged in, right?
Yeah, correct.
Good enough. Because that's one thing I'm really debating on going stage 2 right now.
So that controller, what is that, Prithvi?
GPF controller. So I'll hang on 1 second.
That's a wire harness or what?
Yeah. So
That's a small circuit with a couple of tubes, vacuum tubes.
Is that the thing that goes into the downpipe?
Yeah. So
The
hang on.
Sensor. Is that a sensor?
It's a sensor and a controller module. Hang on. Let me see if I have it. Underbody, front exhaust. 1 second, guys. I'm just too many stuff installed parts. So these are the underbody parts. Sorry.
So Gino, that is currently because it's a dummy, but placed where it was.
Yeah, that need to be there for the map, else it will throw off any error.
Yeah.
Oh, so it is live.
Yes, it's not live, it's not functional, but that connection must be made there.
Oh, the circuit must complete. The circuit must complete, otherwise, okay.
Yeah. I think I have the workshop manual. Let me just see. Yeah. I'll just show you guys what he's talking about. Let's open the work. Yeah.
What are you doing with all this stuff, Prithvi?
This is the workshop manual, so it's very useful stuff. Exhaust system, if I look at it. So
With your work, how do you have time for all this?
I've got very good people working for me. I hire the best people and they take care of most of the work.
Oh, so the
Yeah.
Nokia is the hobby. This is the main work.
Yeah. So Nikhil, this is
Oh,
the part.
shit.
This is what you're talking about. This is what Gino is talking about.
Number one.
This is the GPF controller. It has these two vacuum tubes which go and plug into your GPF front and back. Right. So when you do a stage 2, you remove the GPF. You basically, what he's saying is they basically seal the tubes but leave the controller plugged in.
So the circuit is continuing.
Yes, that circuit is continuing. The system is operational, but it's not reading. That's it. It disables the system's reading.
Through the code.
So,
Yeah.
can you do it in stage 1?
But no, you can, but what's the point?
I mean,
Because
exhaust
you're not
sound
doing the
maybe.
GPS.
Sound, yeah. You can do the sound, yeah. That will help you with the sound. You can remove the GPF then and do the sound. You can do that actually.
But with the stage 1 map, you will also get a check engine light, and it may hit some other limiters or go into some kind of safe mode or protection mode and cause all kinds of problems. No?
Yeah.
You still need a stage 2 map.
Prithvi, what are you planning?
Okay.
I'm debating, IS38 or stage 2. First, let the suspension come. Let's put the suspension on. Let's see how she rides and what limit I can put the power down to, and then we'll add more power if required.
That IS30 you're talking about is with the APR one or another one?
Not if I go IS38, I'm not going to keep the cat for sure.
Exactly. Yeah,
It's too much of a back pressure in the system for me to like. It's like pressurizing a pressure cooker.
Yeah. Okay. So if you go IS38, it will be with something different. Understood.
Either a high flow cat downpipe like APR and try to figure out how to, delete the GPS files. I'll bug Gino or I'll bug one of the other tuners to say, give me a downpipe file for IS38.
That's straight away 40 to 60 horsepower, depending on the rest of the stuff.
Yeah.
No, but I'm sorry, but I have further question on the suspension.
Okay, please.
So the Club Sport is very intriguing for me because you can adjust separately the rebound and the bump or compression or whatever you'd like to call it.
Yes.
My question is, how does that work? How can it be stiffer when it pushes outwards and still be soft while it compresses?
It's the valving, different valving for compression, different valve. It's the combination of the valving, how they do it. I'm not very comfortable talking about suspension valving, so I don't know much about them. I know that the valvings are different and the way the oil flows, how the valvings interact with each other is different when for compression and rebound.
I think it's very logical and simple as long as you have one, right? If there is a valve controlling, you've made the flow restricted or you've opened up the flow, makes sense. But if it goes in different directions and you're valving it differently in each direction, how does that work? Because the total volume of oil, in my mind, the whole chamber has to be the same thing, right? The volume of oil cannot all be altered.
Yeah.
Maybe separate chambers, Bharat.
No,
separate
it's the same change. Look at this way, Bharatji. When you're compressing it, right, your concern is how fast is the oil flowing down or how fast is the oil flowing up, right? When you're rebounding it, your concern is how fast is the oil flowing down. So maybe they're doing some kind of magickery with that, how fast and how slow the oil is flowing up versus how fast, how slow the oil is flowing down. Maybe there's some different kind of valving.
Maybe this is a question that can be answered next session. But if somebody can, provide engineering drawings or simply a cut section of a Bilstein Club Sport suspension, I think we can all learn a lot from that. No?
Sure, we'll try to locate one. There could be enough.
I have not been able to locate a constructive one. That is why this question here. If
I think Prithvi's Olens might have the same valving technology, right?
Yeah, mine has something called dual flow valve. So I've been trying to understand it. It's goes over my head. As long as it does what it does, I'm happy with it. Damping. I have done revalving of dampers sitting on the track. That I've done, but never had to do. I was a dumb beast when I was doing that. It was just just follow the instructions and revalve the dampers, fill in the gas, pressurize it, seal it. That's the max I've gone. But so I'm not. Yeah.
Bharatji.
Yes, please.
Bharat, you buy the Club Sport. If you're not happy, I'll take it. Okay?
No, so that is a bit overkill for me, and it is actually too expensive. Otherwise, I would have definitely tried it.
$4,698 for the Club Sport.
Euro.
Euro. Yeah.
And this doesn't include shipping and duty, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can scratch that.
I know people who purchase this track suspension like D2 for the RS230. And they spend nearly 1 year with many of the tuning companies to tune it, and they were not able to suit to the road conditions, normal driving conditions yet.
Right.
All right. So whenever you're going for suspension, if you are for the road suspension, go for the road itself. Don't go for the Club Sport or track suspension.
No, I just want to try it and understand it once. I have no intent of putting something so stiff on my car in the first place. Prithvi pointed out very well that I'm especially substantially older than most of the people.
How will you try it, Bharatji? From where will you try it?
So that is the question. In case somebody else is trying, or somebody who has a Club Sport, where we can just sit in the car and feel it once.
So the the best suspension for our cars, if you're going fully track, is the Racing Line Club Sport suspension, because that changes the rear to a coilover also and the front to a coilover also. Normally,
That's stiff.
very stiff, but it changes the suspension behavior on the rear drastically. Because if you notice our rear suspension, the spring is in the center of the car, and the shock absorber is on the wheel.
Yeah.
So that when the Racing Line is the only company, I think even D2 also has made a custom kit for Anand's Laura, which is the same thing, which puts the spring on the shock absorber in the rear as well. So that makes it much more linear, much more predictable, and much more dynamic than what it would be with having the spring on one part and the suspension on the shock absorber on the other part.
Okay, so our next session is going to be on is that the transmission mounts?
Yeah, engine mounts, bushings, a bit more on that.
Okay, good. Okay, I think we've spent time, but we've enjoyed it. Any last questions, guys?
So, before we do, just one thing to kind of reiterate what I was saying. This is the rear suspension of our car. So the shock absorber is on this mount point, and the spring is on a different mount point. Now, when you go Racing Line or I think D2, the track suspension, the spring comes onto the shock absorber like the front. The front has the spring around the shock absorber, rather than having the spring on a different mount and a shock absorber on a different mount. That's the difference. So this is the rear. And let me see if I can get to the front.
We can fit that on our cars, is it like that?
Yeah, there's the special kit which comes, which allows us to fit that from the that onto our front.
But we don't have space for that.
They do it like that. So racing.
So they must be fixing an adapter or some kind of base.
No, track sport. I'll just show you guys track sport.
So where the spring is currently will be a vacant space.
Yeah, very vacant space. Yeah. So see, they mount the spring in the shock absorbers.
Like the fronts?
Yeah, like the fronts. So you actually have coilovers on all four. When we do coilovers on our car, we have coilovers in the front only, and the rear is just a shock and strut combo.
Exactly.
So see, this is how it feels. This is how it fits in the rear of the car. This is obviously a Golf R, but you can see that it fits into this. Normally, your spring would be, this is the front actually.
But it also affects wheel clearances, right? I mean,
your rim becomes limited. Choice of rims become limited.
Right. So for the car that I'm planning all this on, I'm generally running substantially wider rims and tires. Those are 255 section. So then this has to be confirmed as a fitment by Racing Line, I guess.
Yeah. So they'll tell you what wheel clearance you can use. But yeah, so I spoke to Racing Line also. They're like, this is primarily for track use. You will hate it on the street.
Okay.
So yeah, this is like 5 lakhs or something.
That's called the VWR Track Sport Coilover System.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, Track Sport. So they're like any other club sport system, which means that they have the fixed camber plate. You can adjustable camber plate in front. Rear adjustable camber plate, damping adjustment and rebound adjustment separately, and things like that. So that's too much complexity for most street cars. You don't need all that. You're much better off without it.
So Naveen had a question on Euro springs. Is this enough Bilstein B8? I think the answer is B6.
B6, yes. B6 is for stock height.
Yeah.
So B6 shock absorber will work for your stock spring as well as the Euro spring. If you go I-back, you go B8. If you go HNR, you go B8. If you go any other Cobra or any other spring, you go B8.
So Gino is going for B8 because he's got lowering springs. The rest of us on Euro or stock springs have to go for B6.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I think that's good for us, guys.
Hey, thanks, Prithwi. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
More than good. More than